I'm going to step off the limb now. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. The purpose is fine and boundary.
Barely 2 generations ago, cars hadn't been invented. Yet now, we can travel to the moon. NASA even has projects to colonize other planets. 20 years ago, life was a mystery, yet now our scientists are actually making life in their laboratories. 20 years ago, Crick and Watson first discovered the structure of DNA. Now, a company called DuPont Limited are selling a machine which synthesizes DNA at the touch of a button. The second half of the last century has seen an enormous revolution sweep over our world. Yet are we any closer to answering the great questions that have always been at the back of all our minds? Who are we? Where did we come from? And where are we going? Religious dogma has forced its answers for centuries, but now is beginning to lose its grip as its self-contradictions become more and more obvious. The alternative explanation, the theory of evolution, is being seen by more and more scientists as simply a theory, and one which cannot explain our recent scientific discoveries. What we do know for certain is that our scientists are beginning to synthesize life in our own laboratories. If it's happening now, then why couldn't it have happened before? In fact, these ideas are as old as the earth itself. The world's ancient texts all talk about people coming from the sky, the stars, or the sun, who made all life on earth, including human beings, in their image. They loved these humans, educated them, and then left, saying that they'd be back one day when we're capable of understanding them. Which sounds the most logical then? The theory of evolution, which claims we came about by chance? Or the theory of an immaterial God suddenly magicking all life on a whim? Or being designed and created in a laboratory? This third option is the most likely because it's actually happening right now in our own laboratories today. If we were created in a laboratory, can we expect our scientific creators to return? On the 13th of December 1973, French journalist Claude Vorion was driving through the volcanic area of Clermont-Ferrand, central France, when he had a sudden urge to take a walk at the Puy de la Sola. Suddenly, he noticed a bright, flashing light in the sky, heading in his direction. And as it got closer, he saw that it was made of a grey metallic substance, the shape of a flattened bell. His curiosity turned to anticipation as the machine approached him, until, when about 30 meters away, it stopped and hovered, still, just above the ground. A trapdoor opened below, unfolding into a staircase. What at first Claude thought was a child stepped down and walked straight towards him. It was a small man, about 4 feet tall, beautiful, black hair, beard, dark almond-shaped eyes, and a smile radiating with harmony. At a loss what to do, Claude acted as a true journalist and asked, "Where do you come from?"
"From very far away, and I have come to talk to you, Claude Vorion."
They talked. Claude was invited into the craft, and over the next 6 consecutive days, the extraterrestrial dictated a series of messages which are both clear and revolutionary. These messages have now been translated into 22 languages and are available by post from the Ryan movement, or you can get to your local library to order them. This is what the extraterrestrial said.
We created humanity. You mistook us for gods. We were the ones who started all the religions on earth. And now that humanity is capable of understanding this, we would like you to build an embassy where we can land officially in front of everyone. A long time ago on our planet, we had reached a stage similar to the one you are in now. Our scientists were beginning to design life through the synthesis of DNA. The whole of our society watched with fascination as they created more and more sophisticated organisms, until one day they made a mistake. From then on, public opinion turned against these scientists, and they were forced to take their experiments elsewhere. They finally found a planet suitable for the creation of life. It was your Earth, and at the time had no life on it at all. It was completely covered with water and clouds.
Many ancient texts point to the work of these scientific creators. Let's open the Bible at the book of Genesis, chapter 1, verse 12.
They divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament.
The waters below was the ocean. The waters above were the clouds.
We dug with the help of enormous underwater explosions, creating huge holes into which the waters rushed, allowing dry land to emerge. An island formed, a continent, the original single continent.
Let the waters under heaven be gathered together into one place, and let dry land appear. Genesis 1:9.
On this single landmass, we set up 7 laboratories, one for each of our own 7 races, and began our experiments synthesizing life. We started by making simple life forms such as viruses and bacteria, and as we progressed in our research, we made more complicated organisms, plants, fish, reptiles, birds, and eventually mammals, daring each time to make an even more beautiful and sophisticated model of living art. Life did not evolve. It simply followed the inspiration of our chemical artists, who integrated and adapted each new prototype to survive in the overall ecology. Fragrances, shapes, colors, styles, textures, movements, even mating rituals were all made to have beauty, harmony, and balance. Seeing this incredible progress, opinions were divided in our government as to whether this artificial life was safe for us. Would the created destroy the creators? We decided to allow our scientists to continue their experiments as long as they did not create any intelligent life. But the temptation was too strong for these scientists and artists, who were impassioned by their work of populating a virgin world. So one day, some of them decided to disregard their orders and synthesize intelligent people like themselves.
Let us make man in our image, after our likeness. Genesis 1:26.
Our government was extremely alarmed when it heard about this. How could we be sure that the human beings that had been created would not become a threat to us? When it heard about this, how could we be sure that the human beings that had been created would not become a threat to us? For our own security, we told our scientists to keep these human beings in ignorance of any scientific knowledge. They were even told to make these people whom they had created believe that we were almighty gods, so as to be sure they would respect us.
Of every tree in the garden you may freely eat, but of the tree of knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat of it, for on that day you shall surely die. Genesis 2:17.
At the time, the human beings called these extraterrestrials Elohim, which in ancient Hebrew meant those who come from the sky. It's found in the original Bibles, but in more recent times was mistranslated by the word God. It's important to realize that this is a plural, the singular being Elohah. References to the Elohim can also be found in other ancient texts, for example in the writings of the Hindu, Greek, Egyptian and Amerindian civilizations. We can read even today about the many gods who had human emotions and who lived near or with these human beings. These gods talked to human beings and even had relations with them.
When our scientists created people like ourselves, opinion on our planet became divided. Could we trust human beings? But there was a group of scientists who had begun to deeply love the human beings they had made. They wished to give them scientific knowledge so that they would be able to communicate as equals. Their love grew so much that this group decided to educate some humans and reveal to them the truth that creators and created are exactly the same.
The serpent said unto the woman, Of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden you shall not surely die, for Elohim both know that in the day that you eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and you shall be as gods. Genesis 3:4.
In other words, you shall be as those you mistook for gods.
If you entered this laboratory, you would realize that we are just like you, and one day you too will create life. You are just another link in the chain. The eternal cycle of creation continues.
And the eyes of them both were opened, and they knew they were naked. Genesis 3:7.
This quote doesn't refer to their physical nudity, but to intellectual nudity. They realized that they'd been kept away from knowledge.
Behold, man has become one of us, to know good and evil. Genesis 3:20.
How could God, supposedly immaterial, intangible and almighty, have written, Behold, man has become one of us? There is another passage which shows that the Elohim were physical and human.
When men began to multiply and daughters were born unto them, the sons of Elohim saw that the daughters of man were fair, and they took wives of all they had chosen. Genesis 6:1.
A little further on, we read,
The sons of Elohim had intercourse with the daughters of men, and had children by them. Genesis 6:4.
There were numerous contacts between the Elohim and human beings, which are recorded in the Old Testament. Moses, for example, thought that the bush he saw was on fire, because he had never seen artificial lights before. In Exodus, Yahweh Elohim is always described as sitting in a pillar of cloud during the day, and in a bright light which shone the way at night. Strange behavior for an immaterial God. Some other examples of the contacts include Jacob's ladder to heaven, Jonah meeting the Elohim in the belly of a whale, and Ezekiel's vision of Yahweh Elohim sitting in wheels within wheels. In the Quran too, we find descriptions of physical contact between the Elohim and human beings. The Quran itself was dictated by Angel Gabriel to Muhammad, and in the night journey, it recounts how Angel Gabriel woke Muhammad up by pinching his toes and took him to the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem in a flying craft. There he met Jesus and Moses, and was then taken up to the 7 heavens, where he met Allah himself, seated on a throne. As the Elohim progressed in their scientific understanding, they realized that the human beings they had created would one day mature into a humanity which itself could parent life on another planet. It takes 666 generations for humanity's scientific understanding to advance sufficiently to begin to create life synthetically. With such technology, it can also free its people from the obligation to work and solve all its problems, such as famine, pollution, and nuclear conflict. Humanity can become one integrated organism, a global brain living on planet Earth in harmony, ready to link up with the global brains in other parts of the universe.
But this can only happen if humanity succeeds in becoming peaceful. If it continues to be aggressive, it will destroy itself with its own technology. You can survive only if prejudice and intolerance are replaced by love and communication. This choice between destruction and world peace is not ours, it is yours. We will not help you survive if you are not peaceful. Humanity has to help itself and show that it is mature enough to take its place in the universe. That is why we decided to leave the Earth, so that humanity could progress by itself. But in the same way that parents guide their children, so we occasionally sent messengers to guide humanity along the path of maturity.
Buddha, Moses, Jesus, Muhammad, and all the prophets who started the major religions were people contacted by the Elohim. The word prophet comes from the Greek, which means the one who reveals. The prophets were given a revelation or message to give to humanity, adapted to the level of understanding at the time. Their role was to progressively educate humanity. For example, Buddha taught humanity many techniques for self-development, balance, and harmony. The prophets were also to leave traces of the Elohim, so that we'd be able to recognize them as our creators and fellow human beings when we had advanced enough to understand them.
The teachings of the Old Testament soon began to be distorted, so we decided to send another messenger.
For this, one of the Elohim made love with Mary, a woman of the earth. This is where the idea of the virgin birth came from. Mary herself had always maintained that the father of her child was not a man of the earth, but
born of an Elohah. John chapter 1, verse 13.
The Elohim guided a number of initiated people to Jesus' birth by a light in their craft. These were known as the 3 wise men. The child grew up, and when he became of age, he was initiated in the desert. When questioned where he'd been, Jesus answered,
"Why are you searching for me? Did you not know I was with my real father?"
When he was baptized,
the voice of Elohim came out of a cloud, which glided in bodily form down to him. Luke chapter 3, verse 22. The voice of Elohim came out of a cloud, which glided in bodily form down to him. Luke chapter 3, verse 22.
Jesus' task was to update the Old Testament and to communicate it to the whole world in anticipation of the age of science and reason in which we're now living. He called it the age of apocalypse, which in Greek means revelation or understanding. Much of Jesus' teaching was distorted and used for political gain. He pointed the way forwards, and everyone just stared at his finger.
And Jesus said, "I will ask my Father, and he will give you another counselor. He will teach you all things and will remind you of everything I have said to you. I have told you now before it happens, so that when it does happen, you will believe." John chapter 14.
So we sent a reminder, Muhammad. Muhammad's role was to remind humanity of the teachings of Jesus. He emphasized that Jesus was not God, but a physical human being. In the teachings of Muhammad, it is also written that
Islam will last until the foot of man will touch the surface of the moon.
21st July, 1969. Neil Armstrong stepped onto the moon. In 1945, the first deadly atomic bomb had been exploded at Hiroshima. Humanity had finally reached the age of science. The age when we no longer have to simply believe, because now we can begin to understand. The Elohim then decided to conceive their last messenger. This last messenger is Claude Vorilhon, whom the Elohim call Rael, which means the messenger of the Elohim. He was born in Vichy in France on the 30th of September 1946. The Elohim followed him from his birth till the time came for him to be told about the task they wish him to carry out. On the 13th of December 1973, they contacted him and dictated to him their first message, explaining who they were and how they had created all life on Earth. The Elohim asked Rael to found an international organization to communicate these messages. The Rael movement has translated these messages into 22 languages, has 60,000 members and already exists in 83 countries. The International Rael Movement is a non-profit making organization and has two aims. Firstly, to build an embassy in internationally recognized neutral territory, where the Elohim will officially come down and meet with our governments. And secondly, to prepare for the arrival of the Elohim by informing the public about their messages. The aim is not to convince, but to inform. On the 7th of October 1975, at around midnight, Rael was again contacted by the Elohim. He was called telepathically to the Roc Plat, a flat rock in the Périgord region of France, and from there he was taken to their planet. To us, this journey might seem impossible, but remember, to your grandparents, so was the idea of going to the moon. And it still happened. On their planet, the Elohim gave Rael the wisdom of a philosophy which shows us how to develop in all areas of our life, including education, love, sexuality, work, leisure, and self-development. The Elohim also explained to Rael the revolutionary concept of infinity, as represented by this symbol, the symbol of infinity in time and space. It's the emblem of the Elohim and can be found in many ancient texts, for example, in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, or in Israel. The Star of David represents infinity in space. The Elohim explain that every atom is made up of subatomic particles. These subatomic particles are themselves made up of clouds of galaxies, which contain stars, planets, people, atoms, which are in turn themselves made up of galaxies, and so on into the infinitely small. Our planet is shooting through space. Our galaxy is a tiny part of a huge atom, which is part of something even larger, and so on into the infinitely large. The universe is infinite. The word swastika comes from the Sanskrit meaning well-being. It represents infinity in time. The universe has always existed and always will exist. The matter and energy which makes us up is infinitely old. It's come together temporarily to form us, and in a continuous process of change will one day dissipate and become part of something else. Everything is connected, and we're just a part of this immense infinity. The Elohim taught Ryle techniques which enable us to feel and harmonize with infinity. These techniques are called sensual meditation and are taught throughout the world. They enable us to discover our individuality and our common humanity. The messages of the Elohim are revolutionary for humanity. When we feel the infinity that we're a part of, and when we understand how we were created, life takes on a new meaning for us, for ourselves as individuals and for humanity that we are part of. For we realize that we can build a better, fairer society for everybody, and we can do it by breaking down the barriers and power imbalances that exist between individuals and nations. Barriers based on, for example, wealth, race, gender, caste, sexuality, religion. We can put technology and people at the service of humanity instead of putting people at the service of power. And we can do this by integrating our scientific progress with a philosophy that allows us to understand our link to the infinite.
Muhammad said, "A prophet will come one day to confirm what I have said. Listen to him and help him with all your strength."
If you'd like to develop yourself and help in developing our society, come to the Rylan courses of sensual meditation. There you can also meet others like yourselves who wish to develop their potential and to bring freedom, peace and progress to our society. We can move our humanity wisely and safely into the next century. The embassy will be built. Our parents from space will come down. Would you like to be part of it?